Anyway, that's probably because of the extreme cold they feel. The idea of the club was that how to bring everybody under one roof. For innovations, it could be IT, NGOs, government organizations, people from abroad, legal expert, and we have all that under one roof. That is, and we have some 40 people who are members. We never wanted more than that. We, in the process, once it matures here, we go and open up chapters elsewhere. This is the initiative of Innovators Club. The whole thing is how we can leverage the technology and other aspects to bring a healthcare delivery cost at optimum level, yet keep the quality. That is what the whole aim. We also have grassroots innovators, and they are the one who need to be mentored. Let me tell you, last time we spoke about, and it's all on YouTube, you want to see, you can have a look at it. That is, the Government of India sent that how to write a proposal and how to get a funding, and they have a big chunk of money, and 40% of money is not really being utilized. So the funds are there in different heads, but they are not being utilized. I have brought this activity now. We have registered a Section 8 company which is called Foundation of IT Foundation of Healthcare Excellence, and we have brought this club under that not-for-profit, and it will work like any other medical association, charters, etc. Gradually we'll do that. So there's a demand which has come from Bangalore. I've seen a lot of people from Nagpur have come. They also probably. Idea is how to take the ecosystem of healthcare innovations to the next level. And I have all multiple people here who are there. We have initiatives you already have in this. I don't want to spend time. We have various initiatives. On all the club members, we give them free magazine and 10% discount. We have free webinar on 8th of February, complimentary, the knowledge platform of sharing. So you would find that there is a one bookmark which gives all our activities, what all we do. So I don't want to waste time on this. When I got, it is something, Professor Paul, I had met him, and after that we developed a lot of synergy. And ultimately we have written first book on healthcare innovation. He co-authored with me, and I took some chapters. Professor Venkat has written one chapter in first book. Sachin has written one chapter in that book. Kind courtesy of Professor Venkat and others well wishes. The book is already adopted in a UK university. It was published in USA. Now Indian edition has come only 15 days back, which is 1/4 of the cost. IIMs have adopted it for healthcare innovations. Second book is just come 20 days back, and Paul again has been my author, and then in that he has written that. Dr. Shushma sitting there written a chapter on this, on this particular, you can read the review in this. So we have knowledge activity, nothing else, and you can be part of it. Do subscribe for this magazine, which is just 100 rupees and something. All that details are given. And more than that, we are giving you free today because you can write, that's more important. Surprisingly, people writing Ayurveda and yoga, they are the Western doctors and not Indian doctors. So I want to encourage that. Now we have 40 odd articles, and it is simple language. We want to take the message, not like British Medical Journal have healthcare innovation. I'm a referee and they have some 400 readers. Only my readership through Amazon is 35,000 people of this magazine, e-magazine. We only print 2,000 copies. We can't afford to print more than that. So these are the few initiatives anybody can have talk about during tea time and the lunch time. Quickly, Professor Paul is being an old associate with me. We have developed some courses for HRD ministry, and we have been resource people for healthcare innovation in IIT Kharagpur, and he has just finished one in NIT Raipur, 5 days course, and we'll be launching something like that. We have signed up with Ministry of Defense on cyber security. We did 2 days, and now we are doing 4 days for the senior people and Sachin will be the resource person. He's double master inside from European University, cyber security, etc. Now, quickly, keep sitting. Just give your name and organization so that people know each other and can network. And I know there are supposed to be 40 people and that this, but doesn't matter. They are still might be coming and joining, etc. And we will see how we can take it forward. So you already know Professor Paul. He's a professor in Aalto University, and he will be conducting the thing. Sachin is one of my partners in all these activities. All the good or bad thing is to his credit. Now, yeah, please carry on.
I'm Dr. Dhananjay Upadhyay, nephrologist from Ashwini Kidney and Dialysis Center, Nagpur.
Good morning, I'm Dr. Ashwini Upadhyay. I'm also from Nagpur, Ashwini Kidney and Dialysis Center, and I'm a pathologist.
My name is Dr. Aman Chawla. I work with Institute of Nuclear Medicine and Life Sciences Defense Research Development Organization as scientist.
I'm Sarita Jaiswal. I'm project scientist in CPRM department in Mass.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vibha Jain. I am working with Max Healthcare in the IT department. I'm leading the clinical automation and EHR implementation there.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Susan, and me and my partner Hans Steinman are from InnoHealth. It's a company which is slightly different from the InnoHealth magazine. That you have with you.
Now I'll tell you the story. The InnovatiioCuris is the company when we have put up for registration. My first choice was InnoHealth, and to my surprise, they said the name is already registered. Then I was searching who is that person whose name. So they are the person who have registered that company. So I didn't lose the heart at that time. I said, doesn't matter. The company may be InnovatiioCuris. So I got the magazine registered as InnoHealth. So that's a registered magazine with the government of India. And that name cannot be. So they are the owner of the InnoHealth company as such and doing a lot of innovation work. Yeah.
No, she has introduced me already. My name is Hans Steinman. I'm a medical doctor, and yeah, we have founded InnoHealth a couple of years ago. And I'm looking forward now to see where our synergies come together.
Yeah, we'll do that.
I'm Nirmay Karandekar. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. We have a hospital in Nagpur called Samarpan Hospital. And my interest is in innovation and taking healthcare to the grassroots, as Dr. Singh was saying.
Hi everyone, I'm Venkat. I'm working as a professor at IIM Lucknow. Thanks to Dr. VK, he is our mentor. Whatever that we are doing at IIM Lucknow in the area of healthcare, it's all because of Dr. VK. I fondly call him as a people's doctor. I think we should celebrate this. He is more than people's doctor. And we adopted the book, the first book in the course also. And this course is happening at 3 IIMs simultaneously for first time in the history of 50 plus years of IIM system. And my goal is to create as much capacity as possible through our IIM students.
Healthcare operations.
So, and also do some little bit of research wherein taking the help of Dr. VK, and maybe some of you can become my partners in doing some sort of research. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm also from IIM. I'm Professor Satya Das from IIM Lucknow. I'm a marketing professor, and also we have started a center for marketing in InnovatorsClub. Nowadays, this healthcare marketing is taken a very important shape in different educational institutes, although they are not curriculum. But I was thinking that how I can be involved and develop a curriculum in healthcare marketing, and also in the center we want to do research. Basically, we want to develop scale for assessing the healthcare needs of bottom of the pyramid consumers and people of a different strata. So if hospitals can collaborate with us and you can do joint research, you can develop certain kind of scales to measure what are the healthcare expectations of Indian consumers, Indian patients. So that kind of collaboration, I think I'm looking forward, and this is the right forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Satya. I think I've got a bright idea after you talked. I know we are friends for quite some time, but I didn't realize that probably as a professor I can't get better person who is in marketing, market the club at no cost. I can't afford to pay you for that.
Yeah,
So let us see how it can take. This is also not for profit, so I suppose you can think. He's already offered me to open a chapter in Odisha where we will get the things moving. So Nagpur somebody has told, so I think even that is okay.
Hello everyone, I'm Sarvesh Tiwari. I work for a company called Dimagi Software Innovations. We are working in M-Health space and based out of Delhi currently.
He didn't tell you, he is also one of the grassroots innovators. Along with Sachin, he went to Nagaland to search, because innovation does not require any experience and knowledge. It requires just an idea. And there are people, there's an initiative with the President of India where people who are just 14th class, this came in Times of India also, can predict heart attack by one sensor, take the what is the protein level. So that is the write-up came, and I think the video was being circulated in WhatsApp. I'll send you, those who are interested, a video by mail. So that's, we are trying to get him in our conference, which is 5th, 6th October in Delhi, and see that. Okay. Yeah, Sushma?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sushma Guleria. I'm a faculty member with the National Institute of Disaster Management. We are the training and research wing of the Government of India under Ministry of Home Affairs.
Good morning, I am J.S. Guleria. I am Administrator Sir Gangaram City Hospital in Delhi.
Yeah, you announce yourself. You are the, sorry, caught you too early before you settled.
Anyway, please press. Good morning, my name. Good morning, my name is Abhinav Singh. I am from Oxygen to Innovation. We operate in the field of preventive healthcare, and we are looking forward to meeting with self-minded people to take the field of preventive healthcare forward.
Yeah, the backside there, the people of my team. Alok is the one. Sorry? Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ankit Abriya. I'm the co-founder at a company called Terrametrics Technologies. We are into Internet of Things, and bringing IoT to healthcare is our next frontier. And that is the reason I'm here attending this conference. Thank you so much.
There's Alok, he looks after complete, his MBA from the US, and he looks after complete management and logistics. So all logistic, good or bad, is his credit. And other people with him. What is?
I'm Neeraj Bajpayee. I was the chief editor within United News of India UNI. Currently, I am with InnoHealth magazine as consulting editor. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Avantika Batish, and I'm working as Director Strategy and Healthcare with a firm called International Health Emergency Learning and Preparedness. And we are into capacity building of healthcare professionals and non-healthcare community on management of life-threatening emergencies. And we are also into fabrication of mobile medical units.
Yeah, I think another guest which has come from Finland. He's from Aalto and he's from Helsinki. He's from the School of Health. So over to him. Please tell something about
Yeah, good morning. I'm Paulus. I'm the Associate Professor of Healthcare Operations Management, currently University of Helsinki in Faculty of Medicine. So I try to build teaching for medical students in the area of operations management and business.
I'm grateful to these resource people who have come on their own expense to be with us. This is something because of our friendship with them and credibility, etc. Today's topic has been selected specifically from the feedback of last time, where Government of India representative came, how to write a proposal, how to get the money for the proposal, how to get sanctioned. The whole thing is there on YouTube if you want to really see. Go to website and see. And that at that time, the issue came up, write a good business plan. So they wanted to know how to write a business plan. Paul I selected because he has varied experience. He has had in Finland, healthcare division chairman. He comes quite often to India and be part of us. So he knows both of everything. So he probably, this is his subject. So I hand over to Paul, and Sachin will conduct all, and I'll listen myself with you, and I'll come in last to sum up. Thank you. Sachin. We are recording and we'll put it again on the website.
Say something or shall I? No. No. Okay. Yeah, 30 minutes. Can you put this on? Okay, good morning everybody. It's great to be here. Hey, you guys in technology, can you turn this mic on? Can you? I can't hear anything.
If you want to make yourself louder, that's for the camera. So we can turn this one on.
Okay, that helps. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you, VK, very much for organizing this session for us. I'll first give you a couple of ideas of my background, what I've been doing. I'm a professor at the Technical University, but I'm not an engineer. My academic background is social sciences. I spent most of the 1980s as a doctoral student in Japan at the time when Japanese management, TQM, lean production, whatever.
Can I just interrupt?
Mm.
Would you like to have a cup of tea now or after half an hour?
After half an hour.
After half an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. And then went to consulting and worked in Sweden for a while, and then came to my current position. I have been researching and teaching about healthcare operations management for about 15 years now. I find it as a sort of very challenging industry that has a logic of its own that is not easily comprehended, even by people who work inside it. And one of the big issues that I've been thinking very much about is how can we import management methods from other industries. Lean production, as you know, is based in the car manufacturing industry. It works in some parts of healthcare, but in other parts it will not work. So obviously there are certain facts and features about the health service production systems that are not comparable to what you find in manufacturing industries, and that's why there is a point in trying to understand the logic of healthcare. So fortunately, I had a chance to take a sabbatical year from Aalto University last academic year, so I was isolating myself from the world and was sitting and thinking heavily about these issues, and wrote a book which is called The Logics of Healthcare. It's been published very recently, just a couple of days ago, by the same publisher that publishes our book. And here I try to develop the idea of healthcare service production as starting from its own sort of foundations, not importing stuff from other parts. Also, the subtitle says A Professional's Guide to Health System Science. So health system science is a term that has been recently introduced by the American Medical Association, particularly for medical schools. And the idea is that medical education traditionally has had two legs to stand on. It is the biomedical sciences about the human body, cells, metabolism, whatever, and then there's a clinical side where students learn how to cut bodies and do this and that. Now, AMA says that a third leg is needed, and that is health system science. That would cover then many current issues like healthcare operations management, health policy, health finance, health economics, and these sort of things. And the idea is that every medical doctor should have at least some level of understanding of these things. And also that there is a need for a group of people who are specialists in health system science. I mean, it's complex enough that to warrant, master's degrees and PhDs that look into health services as a system on its own ground. Okay, so I've been doing mostly academic work, but I've also been involved in various innovative things. Many startup companies. I've been through 4 bankruptcies. It was not fun, but you learn a lot about things that fail. I founded, together with some of my colleagues and students, a company that's known as the Nordic Healthcare Group. We now employ about 80 people, so we have the largest health and welfare specialized consulting and engineering company in Finland, and recently started operations in Sweden and Denmark too. So I've been on the commercial side of things also. Okay, here is just a view of our campus. Sachin has been there.
I've been there.
You've been there, yeah. Okay, but I want to talk a little bit about innovations, like everybody else these days, starting with Prime Minister Modi, who talks about innovation. Innovation is, like many management terms, is a complex word that is used in many different ways. But strictly speaking, based on innovation research, we need to say that an innovation has to have 3 components to be an innovation. First, there has to be some novelty. So if you start the 3rd coffee shop on a block, then that is not an innovation, really, even if you think it's new for you, but it's not new for the world. Then, secondly, and very importantly, an innovation has to be repeatable. So innovation has to be, or it has to be possible to describe it as a prototype, a template, a process description, whatever, so it can be repeated over and over again. And this is why many sort of excellent places that are founded and run by charismatic individuals cannot be considered innovations, because they entirely depend on some individual who has special mental or whatever characteristics, and that cannot be repeated. So they're once in a time, beautiful, nice, but not innovations. And then the 3rd point is that an innovation has to be useful both for the innovator and for the user. This can be known typically if it's trade tested. That means the innovation is present to the market, to people who pay for it for their own money. And if they approve it and pay, then you can say that yes, we are a success. This is also, unfortunately, a reason why we have to say that many of the things that the governments do are not necessarily innovations. I mean, if they have to fund, they by taxing the people and then presenting a benefit that is less than the burden of tax, then there's no benefit, and that's why it's not an innovation. So please keep this in mind. And from an operations management perspective, I think the core issue here is the repeatability. That you have to create some kind of formula how you can scale up and mass produce, or at least produce in big volumes, the good things that you have been doing. All right, that's the first leg. Then comes the business model canvas. I understand that some of you people have been doing or using this for good benefit, but for those of you who haven't, let me just briefly explain it. This is one of the cleverest idea that management science has ever produced, because it compacts in one picture a great deal of knowledge and wisdom, and it's very practical for use. The business model canvas is used to map a business model, and a business model includes all the things that you need to take an innovation to the market and for the benefit of mankind. So the model simply says that you have to ask a couple of questions yourself and define the answers with sufficient clarity. You got to start from the value proposition. So what is the value that you are presenting for the mankind and the new universe? What is the good thing that you intend to do? What do you offer? Then next, you need to ask, whom do you serve? Everybody and his brother and his dog, or a specific segment of people? So who needs it? Not everybody. Somebody needs it. Who are these people? Who are these organizations that you want to deal with? Then you have to ask, how do you relate to them? What kind of relationship do you build with your customers? In some businesses you have no relation at all. In some businesses you have a very deep and intimate relationship with your customers. Then the channels. So how do you reach them? How do you get them to know that you are here and you are willing to work? Then on the left side, that's sort of operations management, that's the supply side. So what are the resources that you need in terms of facilities, machines, people, skill sets, competencies, whatever. And then the key activities. So how do you organize the things? What is the process? What those steps are there? How is this managed and all that? And then finally here, your partners. So whom do you deal with? Who is supplying you? Upon whose advice or supplies or supporting things do you depend? And how do you relate with these people? And then in the basement, you have to ask what is the cost structure? So what costs what? As we know in healthcare, personnel costs in the rich world are about 80% of everything. So everything you do is in a way or another linked to personnel, what you pay to it and how much you use it. In India, I understand it's a little bit different. Personnel is not that big chunk. Machinery and equipment is more. But that varies from country to country. And then very importantly is the revenue model. So how do you get paid? What do you charge for? What are the billable items? Do you bill, by every single output, or you bundle them into things, or do you bill based on results, or based on effort spent, or access granted, or what? So in services, there's a huge wide area of options in how to design the revenue models, and so that needs to be considered. So the key point here with the canvas, and that's why it's a canvas, like painting a picture, is that all the parts are connected. And the same thing on a piece of paper, and you will, Sachin will ask you to do a little bit of exercise using this in a few moments, right? Okay, so I think perhaps the most useful thing with the canvas is that if you change something in one of the boxes, you will have to run through the whole box and ask yourselves what else needs to be changed. I mean, if you start to serve a new segment of customers, then do you need to relate to them in different way? Do you reach them in different way? Do you offer them something new? Do you have to investment in resources? Do you have to change your processes? Do you have to find new suppliers? Everything can change. And if you don't consider those, you are going to create a mess out of yourself. So that's the valuable point in the business model canvas. Okay. But if you use this in healthcare, then as I said a moment ago, I believe it's important to have a good understanding of what the sort of health service production systems really are and what are the relevant parts there. So this is basically the flow chart of the book, where I start with a lot of lofty philosophy thing about the purposeful action and what makes people move. Then there is a fundamental logic of production. And this is what traditional industrial management operations has been doing for 100 years. Then upon that comes the logic of services. And that is more recent academic field, maybe 10, 20 years, where service science has tried to identify and point out what are sort of peculiar characteristics of services that are not identical to the characteristics in manufacturing. So put it briefly, services are defined by that there are immaterial service contracts. So you buy and sell something that does not exist yet, right? Then there is customer contact. So you have to interact with your customer in different ways. If you run a manufacturing plant, you don't have to do that. And because customers enter your production system, they bring with them variability. So they mess up the thing. So a hospital can never be run with the same precision as a manufacturing plant. Or you could if you kept the patients out, right? Then services by following some meaningful way, and then you talk about the slices one by one, and padam, complexity is reduced, and you can get something done. So to that end, we have been working a lot with this sort of segmentation models for healthcare. It's a long story, I'm not going into details today, but we developed a model called demand supply based operating logics, which essentially say that in healthcare there are 7 business models, which are prevention, emergencies, then one visits, like you make one visit to the dentist and then that's it, no history, no future. Then there are elective procedures, which is kind of factory thing. Then there are cure processes, complex processes that cannot plan from end to end, but you expect there to be an end point where the patient recovers. Then there is care, continuous care where there's no end point, like chronic diseases or elderly people. The only end is death. And then finally there are projects where you have to involve a supply network with different players in order to get things done. So I think by applying this sort of managerial segmentation logic, you can start to get hold of the part. So if you deal only with emergencies, then you are sort of safe in the sense that you can concentrate on the logic of emergency services. If you're working only with prevention, then prevention has its own things. Or if you want to run a surgical factory doing only electives, then you go to the Japanese and learn how to run a factory, right? But if you combine everything just like that, then confusion will follow. All right, so that was the theory part. Now I thought I'll tell you an example of an innovation that I have been involved with. And interestingly, as it sounds, it started with a very famous Aravind Eye Clinic in Tamil Nadu, which was a role model here. The Aravind Eye Clinic is very famous and well written up, so I don't repeat, you probably all know it. Particularly the surgical procedure is well described. We have a chapter, by the way, in the book about that. So it's a pure and simple Toyota production system in the operating room at Aravind. So I had a doctoral student, Mr. Anssi Mikola, who was an engineer, and he was doing his PhD on cataract surgery efficiency in Europe. So he collected tons of data from Finland, the UK, all over the place, and wanted to build an efficiency model, because it's well known that cataract surgery is a rather simple procedure, so you can deal with cataract surgery as a sort of elective surgery plant. So industrial management methods are applicable to this particular procedure. Then Mr. Mikola obviously heard about Aravind Eye Clinic, so we had to trek down there to Tamil Nadu, and he was sitting there for weeks and with the stopwatch, measuring all the throughput times and looking at the process in great detail. Then he came back from India and to my office and said, "Paul, let's start Aravind Eye Clinic in Finland. There's a good business idea, isn't it?" Okay, so then we did a couple of calculations, and we noticed that Finland is a small country, 5 million people, and that if we would implement the Aravind model, we would cover the whole Finnish market for cataract surgery with 3 or 4 surgeons. At the moment, there were about 350 people in the country who were making their living from cataract surgery, right? So what are the chances of success? No way. The empire will strike back and we will be smashed like a bug. So, sorry, this will not fly. But then something interesting happened. Mr. Mikola ran across a crazy dentist who had this idea of starting a dental clinic big as a football field. And now these two minds get together, and the megalomaniac dentist realized that you don't want to have a football field size clinic, but you want to have a very rapid turnover in your clinic. So to run it efficiently, and then you could be mega, and the mega clinic, it's the mega size dental clinic. That's what it means. So dental care in Finland is a different ballgame from cataract because it's mostly private. So there are municipal dental care providers. They are cheap, but the problem is long waiting times. So if a non-emergent dental problem, you have to list up and you have to wait for 6 months or more to see a dentist. And the processes are awful. So even if you need only, say, 2 procedures at different times, then you have to wait 6 months between the procedures. So no good. Then there are these private players, but then which have good access, so you can get an appointment tomorrow, but they are then expensive. So Mega Clinica thought out value proposition, how to be competitive in this kind of environment, and it was. I explain it in a second. Then after that, then the model was then compacted into an operating model together with software, and as of now, Mega Clinica was taken over by a venture capitalist. They bought it, and they are turning it to a software and solutions company. So they are not running more than a couple of clinics. They sell software and solutions to dental clinics. But anyway, if you look at the business model, the Mega Clinica business model was based on the value proposition. In this context, saying that we need to produce standard dental services with €1 below the price you have to pay in a public clinic. At the same time, we have to match the accessibility of the private clinics, meaning that you need to be able to get an appointment tomorrow or at least day after tomorrow. And then came the killer. So the killer app. The value proposition that nobody has ever before been able to replicate in a volume production, namely that you can have all your dental problems taken care of in one sitting, if you can take it, or you want to take it. That means, on the first day when Mega Clinic opened its first clinic in Kamppi in Helsinki, you know where it is, a gentleman walked in. He said, I basically hate dentists. I don't want to be here, but I have some problems, so please fix them all. He went to sit in a chair. He opened his mouth. 4 hours later, he closed his mouth, stepped off the chair, paid his bill, and happily walked away. Right? So that can be done. In ordinary clinics, you don't do it because you give people 15 or 20 minutes appointments, and when time is up, then get out of here, come back next week. Which, I mean, if you're a busy person, you hate that, having a dental appointment in your calendar, every Thursday afternoon. You just hate it, right? So if you can get it all done at some pain and some discomfort as you choose, go for that. So that was the value proposition. But this value proposition puts some restriction on whom you can serve. So absolutely, definitely, no children. No way. So sorry. Children are difficult to deal with in dental care anyway, so no children. And then you mostly want to deal with urban people who are busy calendars. They are interested in this. And you can deal only simple common dental problems. So there was a list of the 16 most common, typical dental problems, 16 products on the menu. So no root canal jobs, no prosthetics, nothing complicated, only the simple stuff. Then the customer relations and the customer channels need to be modeled following the pattern of airlines. Namely, this is an operation that's highly volume sensitive. If you are going to sell it cheap, you have to have your capacity fully occupied, otherwise you are going to lose money. So that is exactly the same problem that any airline company has. I mean, if a seat is empty, then that capacity is gone forever, never comes back, right? So you want to sell the full capacity. In the airline industry, there are a number of things called yield management, which is very sophisticated ways of playing around with the prices and pricing schemes with the objective of getting all the seats filled at the maximum revenue. So that can be used in dental care very well. You have a web page where people go, and then they can see when appointments are available. And then there's a predictive model saying that, wow, it looks like this afternoon after 2 o'clock we don't have a lot of appointments. There's free capacity. Then you just change the system on the web and starting offer discounts to people. And by that you get the capacity, because it's better, the capacity costs you anyway, if they're a patient or not. Even a less amount of revenue is on the plus side. So these kind of things has to be done. Then the key resource is real-time production control system, which Mega Clinica developed by its own with little help from some IT companies. And then the key activity, and that is the process, how it's run. And let me show that. This is sort of the key operational innovations in this place. Namely, the typical operating model of dental clinics is that you have one chair, which is expensive, a lot of equipment and drills and stuff in one room, and then you have 1 or 2 nurses who are attached to the chair. And then you have the dentist, which also comes with the chair. But this is inefficient use of capacity, because the resource called dentist and resource called nurse have different costs per hour. In Finland it's about 1 to 3. I can imagine in India it's much steeper. So the dental capacity is expensive, the nurse capacity is cheap. So if you assume that the care process takes 15 minutes, then the nurse is doing 5 minutes, and only then comes the dentist with his skills and is doing the drilling or whatever, and then the nurse takes over and then the patient goes out. So you get too excited about this. So it means you waste an expensive resource for doing not important things. So what you want to do is to have a system where the expensive resource is maximally utilized. From which follows that you have decoupled the dentist from the chair and the nurse. So there are rooms with chairs and nurses, and then the dentist walk from room to room. But then comes the control problem. How can a dentist know when to go to what room? And how can the system know when a dentist is occupied or when dentist is free? So that requires a system with monitors all over the place, and every room has to have a couple of buttons. So when the dentist walks in and before he starts working on a patient, he presses, I'm busy now. And then he walks out to say, I'm free now. And then the system tells him, okay, dentist need in room 12, dentist need in room 6. So they walk around there and do their job. Another restriction with this model, particularly with this value proposition of being able to use flexible appointment times, is that there is a minimum volume requirement. At the beginning was 18 chairs. Because if you have 18 chairs, you can calculate that the random variation from patient to patient in terms of the time they then tends to even out, that you can then accommodate a person who comes and wants to have a 4-hour sitting. So you can do that without disturbing everything else in the system. So this is one of the limitations, and as I said, Finland is a small country, so there's only one location where this kind of 18-chair dental clinic can operate, and that's downtown Helsinki at the subway station. It's the only place where you can have enough sort of foot traffic to fill the capacity. But then as Mega Clinica developed and went to serve the public sector, then came another innovation. Namely, you can use this model in smaller cities because you don't need to run a dental clinic in the Mega Clinica mode all the time. So if you have a clinic with, let's say, 18 or 16 chairs, you can run it in the Mega Clinica way during the morning. And then during lunch, you switch it over to an ordinary, classical dental clinic, where you start doing the root canal jobs and the prosthetics and whatnot. So you don't have to dedicate the resources to one way of operating, you can switch them. So it's basically the same idea as in the airline industry, where the same aircraft can be used for passenger traffic and cargo. And even in the passenger side, they have two products that commercially behave different, namely business class and economy class. But they're handled by the same aircraft. So different businesses in the same aircraft. So in the same way, in the same dental clinic, you can have different businesses that operate different business models. So that was sort of, again, an innovation. Now, when you think about it, it's plain and simple, obvious. Anybody could think about that, but we couldn't. I was struggling for years and years with this 18 chairs limit until somebody came up with a smart idea that run it in the morning and run it as a dental hospital in the afternoon. All right, so that was the case.
I want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
Recently I've been to Arvind Hospital for treatment. Recently I've been to Arvind Hospital. During peak time, they run their restaurant is different from their non-peak time. Including the restaurant, the way they operate, the number of chairs is unique.
Yeah, it simply you adjust your capacity depending on the estimated demand, right? Okay. Okay. Now I would like to conclude with one observation about how to promote innovation. The conventional view that I believe the government of India and the government of Finland has, that we have to promote basic research because we think that when somebody comes out with some new innovations in the nano or whatever area, then that will develop to applications that eventually turn into technologies that then companies adopt and then they become sellable products. But if you look at the history of technology, then this is a very, very rare occurrence that something would move from basic research to application just like that, like all the university presidents think they do. If you think of the steam engine was not developed based on science. It was just a number of clever guys like Thomas Savery, Thomas Newcomen, and James Watt. All these three gentlemen were illiterate blacksmiths. So they're clever, but they have no books, they could not read, they could not write. They were just playing around with various kind of technologies because they needed to. And Thomas Savery developed the first thing called as the engine of fire, which the other guys then picked up and improved it until James Watt had the first sort of workable steam engine and put it on wheels and created the railroad industry. It was only 100 years later when the science of physics developed to an extent that first Sadi Carnot and then Lord Kelvin could explain why the steam engine works. So the steam engine was working for 100 years in practice, but not in theory. But then, when it started to work both in practice and theory, that means that what worked could be explained on a higher level of abstraction in terms of ordinary physics, from which follows that these guys don't have to go through trial and error and have all this experimental steam engine blow up in their faces. They could sit down in an office, use engineering skills and knowledge and make new designs, test them mathematically first, and then build a prototype and then take it further. So the development of steam engines went through the roof with the advent of the theoretical explanations. So that happens sometimes in management too. Even though I've been in management science for quite a while, and I ask if the professors here agree, but I know only about one management innovation that would have originated in the lab. Or do you know? Most of the innovations originate out there somewhere, when some practical people who face problems are desperate to find solutions. They tinker with things and do this and that, and then somebody is successful, and then it becomes known, and then it spreads out. By the way, the only lab-based management thing that I know is what is known as a theory of constraint, the bottleneck theory by Elia Goldratt. But it's an exemption and rare case. So, for example, the lean production system. The Japanese people after the war were desperate to build products that could be exported, and they didn't have much resources. They were under a sort of frugal condition to use what you have to build something that can be sold. And they played around in the factories, tried this and that, and didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have a name to it, they just did it. And then, as it happened in the 1970s when there was the oil crisis, which hit the car industry very badly, because the price of gasoline quadrupled over one night. So every car in company in the world took a hit, except Toyota was the only player remained standing. And then everybody started to ask, what are these guys doing? There must be something they know that we don't know. And then in the United States, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology started a huge global research project called the International Motor Vehicle Program, which then looked at every car assembly plant in the world and studied them following classical industrial management tools and protocols. And they came up with the conclusion that the Japanese, or particularly the Toyota group, was the best. And then they landed on the factories and started ask, what are these guys doing? What makes them best? And from that came out this book that is very famous, The Machine That Changed the World, which is a classical Bible of lean production, lean management. So these management scholars did the same as Lord Kelvin. They created a theory that explained why something works in practice. And again, as with the steam engine, with lean production, once the theory and the principles model was explained, then development took off. And only then could lean principles be applied overseas in car manufacturing, and it jumped to other industries like consumer electronics and what basically any assembly industry today is using it, and lean is the standard model for all industrial management textbooks. So I think this principle can sort of repeat itself all over in small and big circumstances. And that's why I think that a thing that I hope would happen in India would be that the hospitals and other health service producers could find their friendly neighborhood technical university and share their problems and their data with researchers in systems and management, and by that sort of accelerate the development. So science, as this picture shows, science is not all about basic research where nerds sit in the basement and do things that nobody understands. Well, that's part of any campus, but that's not all of it. Scientific research is partly engineering and clinical medicine, where you go for specific applications. But what we do mostly, or where I position myself, is the left upper slot, where we deal with known unknowns, where we try to develop the knowledge base that can be used in order to build solutions for health service producers. So it's between basic research and applied research. We deal with known unknowns. Not unknown unknowns, but known unknowns. So how can we know these unknowns? We can't unless our friendly neighborhood hospital manager tells us about them. So that is the key competitive advantage management research. Again, guys, do you agree that having access to the best companies, or best hospitals, problems and data? Data is good, but as a researcher, you want to hear from the people from the front line that what is keeping you awake at night? What is the problem that bugs you? What would you like to have solved, but you don't know how? And then we could start thinking, these are the known unknowns. Can we open up the box somehow and create some useful knowledge that then the practical people can take and play around with and do great things? All right. So for the past couple of weeks, I've been around in India. I was at the NIT in Raipur and IIT Kharagpur, talking with colleagues in the same field. And let me tell you, these guys were sort of desperate for data. So it's sad to see the smartest brain in India sitting in a basement in Kharagpur IIT campus and trying to sort of create simulated data masses so that they could test something. So why can't you go to a hospital and ask them to give you your data? You can of course codify it and anonymize it, so no patient information, so that they could play with real data. You know. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a chance to sort of enhance this kind of cooperation, I think you would do a service to India and to the world. Thank you so much.